Welcome back to another episode of Train for Life Fitness Podcast. Today we're getting into something that is, honestly, it's one of the most staggering and deeply frustrating statistics in the whole health space.
Yeah, it really is a tough one to face.
Right. So, for those of you listening, did you know that the vast majority of people who actually manage to lose a significant amount of weight, they end up gaining almost all of it back within just a few years?
It's sad, but yeah, it's incredibly common.
I mean, you start a protocol, you track every single macro, you deal with the hunger, and you finally hit that magic number on the scale. You feel this, massive sense of pride.
Oh, absolutely. You've earned it at that point.
But then, almost invisibly at first, those old habits just sort of creep back in, and the weight slowly returns. And you find yourself right back at square one, totally exhausted, thinking you have to start the whole thing over.
And that creates a tremendous amount of psychological fatigue because people internalize that as a failure.
Yeah, they blame themselves.
Exactly. They look at the regained weight and they tell themselves this really damaging story. They say, I'm just lazy, I lack willpower, or I just don't have the discipline to keep the weight off.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We are completely dismantling that narrative. So we're unpacking a really insightful source document. It's called Breaking the Cycle of Lasting Weight Maintenance by Lët'z Roar.
It's a fantastic piece of work.
It really is. And the mission of our deep dive today is to uncover the real architecture behind why this cycle happens to you.
Right.
And more importantly, how you can just permanently exit that loop.
Right, because the core message of this document is actually super liberating.
Yeah, it says falling back into old patterns isn't a moral failure at all.
Exactly. It's a structural failure. The root cause of this whole relapse thing is basically systemic. People fail because they never actually built a lifestyle they could maintain.
They just built a temporary intervention.
Hit the nail on the head. And I want to set a baseline for you, the listener, right out of the gate. If you have gone through this yo-yo cycle, you are not broken and you're not weak.
That's such an important point to emphasize.
It really is. You were just operating under a flawed system.
Right.
A paradigm that treats health like some finite project instead of, a permanent condition of your life.
So let's look at the tools people usually grab when they start one of these finite projects. Because as we said, willpower is not the problem here.
No, not at all.
The source puts a huge spotlight on extreme diets as the main catalyst for regaining the weight. We're talking about severely slashing calories, completely cutting out entire food groups.
Demonizing carbs or fats, yeah.
Right. Or punishing your body with hours of daily cardio, doing these weird detoxes, or, trying to live off protein shakes and a side salad.
And the diet industry loves to sell you those extremes, right? Because they undeniably give you rapid short-term results.
Oh, for sure. You drop 10 pounds in a week and you feel amazing.
Exactly. You see the scale drop, you get that massive hit of dopamine, and it gives you the illusion of real success. But people don't realize the physiological debt they are accumulating.
It's so true. It actually reminds me of a highly leveraged stock trade or something.
Well, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, you might see a massive payout in the first couple of weeks by shorting your sleep and just slashing your calories to nothing. But eventually, the margin call comes due. You just cannot outrun your own biology forever.
That is a perfect analogy. You really can't.
And the document actually poses this brilliant question. I want everyone listening to ask themselves this about their current routine. Ask yourself, can you realistically continue doing this exact same thing for the next 5 years?
That is the ultimate litmus test right there.
It is, because if the answer is no, what happens?
Well, if the honest answer to that 5-year test is no, then any physical result you get is basically rented. You don't own it. Rented
results. Love that phrasing.
Yeah, and this is the fundamental flaw of treating fat loss as a temporary thing. The mindset of, once I lose these 20 pounds, I can finally go back to normal.
Right, which is a total trap.
Exactly, because your previous normal is the exact environment that created the excess weight in the first place.
It's like you wipe your computer's hard drive, but then you just reinstall the exact same malware-infected operating system. And then you sit there acting totally surprised when it crashes again.
Yes, that is exactly what happens. The paradigm just has to shift from outcome-based thinking to system-based thinking.
So instead of asking how fast you can drop the weight, which forces you into those extremes, you ask what?
You ask, how can I construct a life that naturally maintains a healthy body? And that forces you to look at your daily permanent behaviors. It moves everything from temporary deprivation to a permanent redesign of your life's architecture.
Okay, so to redesign that architecture, The source makes a really interesting argument. It says you have to change something much deeper than just, your grocery list.
Right. You have to rewrite how you view yourself.
It's exactly. We're getting into the psychology of lasting change here. Specifically, the concept of identity, which the text highlights as huge.
Identity is the absolute critical lever in behavioral change. Most people, they try to change their bodies, but they stubbornly hold on to their old mental models.
Like they still internally identify as the person who hates exercise.
Exactly. Or the person who has a slow metabolism, or the person who is just perpetually struggling with food. They look at their new healthy habits as foreign behaviors.
They wear the struggle like a permanent name tag, basically.
Yeah, they really do.
And the text says real transformation means ripping that name tag off. You have to shift that internal monologue to say, I am an athlete, or I am someone who prioritizes my body.
Which sounds simple, but it's profound.
Well, wait, let me play devil's advocate for the listener for a second. Let's say I've been completely sedentary, just sitting on the couch for the last 5 years.
Okay.
If I wake up tomorrow and just declare I am an athlete, that feels like massive cognitive dissonance. Like my brain knows I'm totally faking it. How do you bridge that gap without feeling delusional?
That's a great question. You bridge that gap by understanding that action precedes belief, not the other way around.
Okay, so you don't just stand in the mirror chanting affirmations.
No, definitely not. You don't just chant until you believe it. You cast small, daily votes for your new identity through your actions.
Votes for your identity. I like that.
Right. So every single time you lace up your shoes and take just a 20-minute walk, you are giving your brain undeniable physical evidence that you are someone who moves.
So the dissonance fades because you literally have proof.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The evidence of your new identity becomes overwhelming over time.
That makes a lot of sense. And the document also issues a pretty stern warning against relying on motivation to drive those actions.
Oh, yeah. Motivation is a trap.
Right, because motivation is just an emotion, and emotions are super unreliable. Like, they fluctuate based on how you slept or your stress or even just the weather outside.
Relying on motivation is a guaranteed recipe for inconsistency. If you want successful maintenance, you have to rely on discipline and the automation of your habits.
But say habits don't require that daily emotional negotiation, right?
Exactly. They operate way below conscious decision-making. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't wake up, watch a David Goggins motivational video, and then finally feel inspired enough to go brush your teeth.
No, I definitely don't stand in my bathroom debating if I have the willpower to pick up my toothbrush today.
Yeah.
I just do it.
Because your identity is firmly rooted in being someone with basic hygiene.
Wow. Yeah.
So when you start viewing a high-protein breakfast or a gym session or your daily walk through that exact same lens, not as a punishment, not as a temporary diet, but just basic hygiene for your physical body, the internal resistance just completely collapses.
Basic physical hygiene. That is such a powerful reframe. So if preserving that new identity is the psychological foundation, let's move into the actual physical actions that support it.
Yeah, let's get into the mechanics.
Because once you commit to discipline over motivation, what are the specific biological systems you have to manage? This brings us to a massive mistake the source calls out: the obsession with cardio while totally ignoring strength training.
This is huge. Relying too heavily on cardiovascular exercise when you're in a calorie deficit is one of the worst things you can do to your metabolism.
Because you're not just losing fat, right?
Right. When you run a severe deficit and just do tons of chronic steady-state cardio without any strength stimulus, your body freaks out. It responds to the energy crisis by shedding mass, and unfortunately, it sheds a ton of muscle tissue.
And since muscle is highly metabolically active, losing it means you're literally shrinking the size of your metabolic engine.
Exactly. You are actively driving down your basal metabolic rate. You burn fewer calories just sitting around.
But the text says it goes even deeper than resting calories, right?
It does. When you lose muscle and overtax yourself with cardio, this thing called metabolic adaptation kicks in. Your central nervous system thinks you're starving, so it downregulates other functions to save energy.
And a big victim of this is NEAT, right? Non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Yes, NEAT is critical.
Just to clarify for the listener, that's the energy we burn doing all those subconscious movements, yeah?
Yeah.
Like tapping your foot or adjusting your posture or pacing around the kitchen while you're on a call.
Exactly. And when metabolic adaptation happens, your NEAT just plummets. You start fidgeting way less. You slump in your chair. You subconsciously take the elevator instead of the stairs without even realizing it.
Your body just becomes incredibly stingy with its energy.
Exactly. So your resting engine is smaller because you lost muscle, and your subconscious movement drops to almost zero. This is why keeping the weight off becomes exponentially harder.
Your body literally requires way fewer calories to exist than it did before you started dieting.
Right. You are actively sabotaging your future self. And that's why the text insists that strength training is a non-negotiable protective shield.
Because lifting weights tells the nervous system that you need that muscle.
Yes. It signals that despite the lack of calories, this muscle tissue is essential for survival. It forces the body to go tap into the fat stores for energy instead.
So physiologically, preserving muscle is the absolute bedrock of long-term maintenance. But the document also talks about the behavioral systems that tie into this.
Yeah, the behavioral side is just as important.
Right, like that common trap where someone hits their goal weight and then they celebrate by immediately reverting to old habits. Suddenly they're doing takeout 4 nights a week and drinking excess alcohol all weekend.
Which leads to the weight piling right back on.
Exactly. And this sets up my absolute favorite concept from the entire Lët'z Roar document. The quote is, "You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your systems."
It's such a brilliant way to frame it.
Let me break it down for the listener with a quick analogy. Think about it like a cross-country road trip. Your goal is the destination on the map, like, say, a sunny beach in California.
Okay, I like where this is going.
But your system is the vehicle itself. It's the engine, the transmission, the fuel lines. You can stare at that map all day long. You can desperately want to be on that beach. But if your engine is blown, staring at the map isn't going to move you a single inch.
You default to the capacity of your vehicle.
Exactly.
And in this context, the physical system, your muscle mass, and the behavioral system, your automated daily habits, those are the engine of your vehicle.
Right, because the goal is just a momentary change in state. A system is a permanent structural upgrade.
Perfectly said.
So we've diagnosed the mental pitfalls and the physiological traps like losing muscle. Let's look at how the source translates all of this into daily execution. The document gives us a specific playbook, 6 rules for lifelong maintenance.
And what's great is how practical they are.
They really are. Rule 1 is avoid extreme diets. Just aim for sustainable progress. And that actually pairs perfectly with Rule 5, which says allow flexibility and ensure no foods are permanently forbidden.
Those two are deeply connected because they tackle the psychology of restriction head on.
How does letting yourself eat whatever actually keep you from falling off the wagon, though?
It's about the what the hell effect. In behavioral psychology, absolute restriction is almost always the trigger for the binge and restrict cycle.
Oh, because when you say you can never have a specific food again, you just hyperfixate on it.
Exactly. It becomes the forbidden fruit. It gains this massive psychological power over you, and the moment you slip up, which you will because life happens, the cognitive dissonance shatters your fragile little system.
So you eat one cookie, realize you broke the rule, and your brain just goes, well, what the hell, I've already ruined today. I might as well eat the entire box and just start over next Monday.
Exactly. But if you embed flexibility into your permanent system, you neutralize the moral value of the food. You remove the rebellion aspect of dieting.
So if I know I'm allowed to have a slice of pizza on a random Tuesday, I don't feel the need to binge on 3 large pizzas on Saturday night.
Right. It ceases to be forbidden, and it just becomes food again.
That is so freeing. And neutralizing food gives you the mental bandwidth to focus on training, which brings us to rules 2 and 3. Strength train 2 to 3 times a week and prioritize protein.
Right. We talked about muscle preservation, but protein is the key to unlocking that.
Yeah. Why does protein get its own specific rule here?
Because protein is the biochemical prerequisite for muscle protein synthesis. You can lift all the weights you want, but if you don't give your body the amino acids to repair and grow, you blunt the whole process.
It makes total sense.
And beyond that, protein plays a massive role in satiety. It heavily influences hormones like ghrelin and leptin, which control hunger. A high-protein diet naturally regulates your appetite, so being in a caloric balance doesn't feel like starvation.
Okay, so we've got nutrition sorted, and we're lifting weights for maybe 3 hours a week. But what about the other 165 hours in the week?
That is where Rule 4 comes in. Keep daily movement high.
And the document specifically calls out walking as this incredibly powerful tool.
Because walking is the ultimate way to manage the need we talked about earlier. It's low impact, it's super sustainable, and it signals to your body that you are an active organism.
And it doesn't wreck your recovery like doing endless sprints would.
Exactly. It doesn't spike cortisol or fry your central nervous system. It just keeps your daily energy flux high, letting you eat a normal, reasonable amount of food without storing it as fat.
And wrapping all of this together is the final rule. Rule 6. Focus on habits, not deadlines. This isn't some 12-week internet challenge.
Yeah, it's a lifelong journey.
Looking at these 6 rules, they are honestly refreshingly unglamorous. Like, there are no weird biohacking secrets here, no obscure supplements, but there's just this immense, quiet freedom in how simple it is.
Because the ultimate objective of the Lët'z Roar philosophy isn't to just force a lower number on the scale for a few weeks.
Right.
It's to teach people how to train, eat, and think in a way that actually serves their biology and psychology for the rest of their lives.
The true definition of success here is that you never have to start over again.
Never having to start over. That's the dream.
That really is the ultimate return on investment. So I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder today. And this goes beyond just what you eat or how you train.
This is the big picture.
Exactly. Think about the compounding interest of this new identity we've been talking about. Sure, building the discipline to lift weights, get your walking in, and eat like an adult that physically remodels your body.
Absolutely.
But think about how the neuroplasticity of that discipline spills over into literally every other domain of your existence.
Oh, it changes everything.
Right. The resilience you forge under a heavy barbell, it does not stay in the gym. If you can systematically dismantle the victim mentality around your health and build a lifelong operating system of discipline, how is that going to infect your career?
How will it upgrade your financial discipline?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or your emotional regulation in your relationships. You are not just maintaining your weight here. You are proving to yourself that you are capable of permanent structural mastery over your own life.
Because the exact same habits you cultivate to protect your physical health become the framework you use to build a resilient mind.
It's all connected. Well, if this deep dive helped you reframe your approach to fitness, please leave us a review. Share this conversation with someone who is just exhausted by the endless cycle of extreme diets and is ready to build a permanent system. And if you want to explore the resources to truly transform physically and mentally, be sure to visit Lët'z Roar. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and in the meantime, let's roar.